Hey friend, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here listening to another episode of the Pattern Design Circle podcast. Here we talk all about the ins and outs of designing knit and crochet patterns and running a business that makes it all possible. I'm Jessica, your host, knitting pattern designer, design mentor, and the friend in your ear. Can't wait to dive right in. The Pattern Design Circle podcast is sponsored by the Pattern Design Circle, a membership community for knit and crochet pattern designers that are feeling lost, lonely, or frustrated in their business. It connects you with a supportive community that's always eager to answer your questions and help you through the hard times. And there's loads of resources and activities specifically catered to business and designing. Sound like your jam? Check it out at snickerdoodleknits.com/design-circle. That's snickerdoodle, like the cookie, knits, knits.com/design-circle. All right, let's get into it. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Pattern Design Circle podcast. I'm so excited to be here in your ear again. And I have a special guest that we've had here on the podcast a couple times, but I'm so excited to have her back. We have Kinsey of Feel Good Social and Authentic AI with us. And last time we talked about creating content authentically using AI. Today, or really kind of using AI authentically, it wasn't just about content creation. Today, we're going to talk more about creating authentic content. And we were just talking about ideas before we started recording, and I think we have lots of fun topics to talk about. What are people actually wanting right now? How are people consuming content differently than maybe we saw even a year ago? All the things. So, Kinsey, is there anything else you want to share about yourself?
Oh, I think you did a great job, Jess. Thank you so much for inviting me back on the show. We geek out all the time, so I can't wait to see where this conversation leads us.
Yes. Okay. So, when we talk about authentic content, is there something particular that comes to mind? What are you meaning when you talk about authentic content?
I feel like, content in general has changed so much over the past like 6 years that I've been in business. It's like when we first started in the entrepreneurship game, back in 2018 or whatever it was like people didn't even know much about like what the word content actually meant often, right? Like it wasn't like a buzzword or something that most people in the world knew the meaning of. And now fast forward to 2024, it's like we have content creators who are making millions of dollars on social media and it's like a profession and stuff, right? So I think that content, just like acknowledging that content has gone through kind of like ups and downs and a roller coaster and shifted through the years, is like something that we should probably just acknowledge, right? And so, what does authentic content look like today in 2024? I mean, for me, it's kind of just the stuff that matters to your brand and speaks to the heart and soul of your ideal customer, right? I really am so annoyed with any clickbaity content that is out there online these days. And also, I really want to get something out of every piece of content that I consume online. I hate feeling like someone is trying to trick me into reading their caption or whatever that looks like, right? And for me, for Feel Good Social and Authentic AI, our authentic content, I would just say represents our brand, shares helpful, valuable information to our ideal customers. And it's just something that I feel proud of posting and that I know anyone who lands on that post is going to feel happy that they saw it, feel happy that they read it, and get something out of it. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. And I think so when you were talking about kind of just the evolution of the idea of content in the last few years, one of the ideas that came to mind in my head would be also the content overwhelm that we see. We have people as consumers, any of us on any social media platform or signed up for email lists or anything. I definitely feel like societally we're going through so much overwhelm with technology. Um, and I think maybe that also contributes to our desire for authentic content. And not only from the creator's perspective of wanting to share stuff that's meaningful and purpose driven and actually feels good, but also from the consumer perspective of there's so much content that like what I do consume, I want it to be valuable. I want it to be worth my time. Um, or I guess we've even seen on like I'm most Instagram's my primary social media platform, but we've seen this trend in the last few months going towards the photo dumps and so many things that it feels like it's pushing against, you know, even a lot of this like AI stuff or a lot of the stuff that's just like feels fake or feels made up or like it's just like this kind of returning back to what is really genuine, what's just raw, what's just like the boring moments that we actually enjoy kind of stuff. Are you seeing that in your audience as well?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. You know, my first thought too was sometimes I get annoyed with, well, firstly, the content overwhelm is so real. You're so correct about that. Like, and exactly, we're just consuming more and more content every day. And like, yeah, as this consumer, you're like, what do I care about? And I get annoyed when I consume something that I don't care about. And it is funny that you brought it to the photo dump thing because my initial reaction was kind of like, sometimes I get annoyed with like photo dumps that I don't necessarily that aren't relatable to me, right? Maybe or like connective to me in a way. And or when it feels like someone is just saying like me versus at least inviting me in for a connection of some sort or something like that, right? But I also really have found myself finding like little moments of joy in the day when I do come across a post that is sort of that photo dumpy or like real life authentic thing. And it just makes, and it does connect with me, right? And it does like just bring me this little moment of joy. And and so I don't know, like that was kind of my first thought, right? And I kind of had two different reactions there. I think
Yeah.
maybe it's like about the connection over the realness and the authenticity as much or something.
Yes, I totally agree. I think when primarily when I've seen photo dumps, it's on my personal Instagram and it's friends. And so it's like when you care about somebody and you're like, oh yeah, I want to see your boring stuff in your life. I want to see like you're just excited to see it. So I feel like even as a brand, if you have a really strong personal brand or people just adore you as a human, it just like, I mean, okay, a big example we could say is Taylor Swift. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
her fans adore anything that has to do with her. Like she could do a photo dump of the most random things, and the people that adore her are going to gush over it. And so maybe if we have a very strong personal brand where it's very maybe it's me focused, but people love it, that's when that's kind of stuff would relate most or be.
Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. Because I think when you kind of first talked about the photo dump, I was thinking of like the brand people who I've seen, like from my Feel Good Social Instagram account and stuff. And yeah, like sometimes I like adore the photo dump content because I love that person. And
Yes.
then sometimes I'm just like, what am I even looking at? What are you talking about? Who are you again? You know, and we're being real here and like no shade or shame to any of those people and stuff. But yeah, I think that we're on something there where it's like, well, and also too, I think it is remembering who you're sharing to still, right? Like, yeah, if I would look at a photo dump on my personal Instagram of like my friends and like all that stuff, who I just like I love any random thing, whatever, you know. But like as a brand, if you're photo dumping, it's like, who am I sharing this photo dump to, you know? And like,
Does
will
it
they think
relate to
it's
them?
cool? Yeah, like, will it inspire them? Will it relate to them? Like, whatever it is. So like, you know, for knitters, it doesn't just have to be like you knitting. You don't have to photo dump just like you knitting or whatever. But, you know, most people have like a cat or a dog, you know, most people like I probably, you know, wouldn't share. I'm trying to think of an example of something I wouldn't share with my Feel Good Social audience, but I don't know. I share a lot of behind the scenes of business stuff. And then sometimes just like my skiing. You know, I got a lot of interaction of skiing because either people love skiing or they're like, what the heck are you doing? You know? So that one worked for my feel good social audience. I can't really think of something I wouldn't necessarily share. I don't know. Can you?
I mean, like, I feel like there's content that I might share on a different account that I wouldn't share on my business account. And that would be things like maybe just like baking or cooking stuff or random photos. Like, I like taking kind of nature photography that's like detailed, like in the grass or in leaves and stuff. But I like
Yeah.
probably wouldn't share it on my either of my business pages just because it wouldn't resonate the same way. Like it's kind of like, all right, this is a fun, creative, whatever, but it's just doesn't resonate the same way. It's not like super meaningful. It's just kind of artistic.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I don't know. This is an interesting point. I feel like I need to like mull it over more,
Yeah,
you
and
know?
I feel like probably just going back to our brand pillars, brand containers, and being like, all right, what are the things that resonate with people? And you can pull everyday pieces from that and be like, all right, this is going to this is most likely to actually connect and relate. Um, the other kind of dumps that I've seen that I kind of love are like the memes that are, just
Oh, I
relatable
love the
industry stuff, and then
memes.
just like 10 of them together. Yeah, that's it. I'm thinking specifically of some that I've seen recently where it's like they're not like the prettiest. Like they're obviously like, all right, cut and paste this image here and pull this text here, and it's not like the most aesthetic, but it's relatable, and so then it's funny, and yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love the meme dumps too. And that's another interesting one. I've seen like different accounts kind of share different memes in different ways, right? And so I love seeing my gardeners share memes. I have quite a few gardeners in my community, and like I'm not a gardener at all, guys. I have a brown thumb. Brett doesn't let me touch our plants, but like I laugh at the gardener memes, and I think they're so cute and hilarious and fun, and I love seeing them. I swipe through them all the time. But like I follow, for example, I follow like this jewelry maker account. I'm pretty sure that that's what they are, and they share memes that like don't really have anything to do with like their kind of what they do and their business, and I and maybe the memes that they share just aren't that relatable to me or something like that, but I just like always get confused whenever I see their posts pop up at my feed. So I'm like, wait, who are you? What do you do again? I always kind of am like curious and a little confused, so I think that this conversation is kind of coming back to remembering like who you're sharing to. And also, something that popped up for me was I realized that I would not share videos of me skiing to my personal account in the same way that I share them to my Feel Good Social account, right? My personal account, I have a lot of friends who are skiers. Everyone kind of knows that I'm a skier already, and like they are part of that like kind of community already, right? And so I don't have to explain anything or like ask people, do you love to ski or anything like that, right? But when I did recently share behind the scenes of my weekend when we went skiing to my Feel Good Social account, it was very much like kind of explaining, why I love this, asking people, do you love to ski or like anything like that, and so it was definitely a difference of the way I shared it and like how I talked about it and stuff.
Yes, yes. I feel like so much of this is like, I mean, like you said, pulling it back to our brand, like really like having authentic content in terms of a business isn't just sharing yourself. It's not just sharing your life and what feels real. Um, but it's still keeping it focused. So it's like it relates and you're not going to confuse your audience. That's something I feel like you've mentioned multiple times is this like confusion of like, why are you sharing this? What is this like? Um, and so to keep that brand identity, it's really important to continue to work towards keeping things cohesive. Something that's interesting to me, just noticing my own consumption of what's valuable to me and what's not in content, is I primarily find value in things that are entertaining at this point. if it's educational, if it's teaching me something, if I'm scrolling on social media, I don't want to learn. I don't want like I'm exhausted, I'm burnt, I don't need to learn something new right now. Kind of attitude or like the way that I am consuming social media. I want to be entertained, I want to be laughing, or I want to feel super relatable with like motivational, inspirational kind of quotes or like um Morgan Harper Nichols is one of my favorite creators. She does tons of quotes and things like that, or like artsy. But it's like very much this like I'm consuming content really that's entertainment based, and that doesn't mean that it's not business related. Like if we can have entertaining content that is also relates back to our business with memes or different content like that. But do you feel like that is a like this just wanting entertainment thing? Is that a shift we're seeing at large, or what are you seeing on your end? Do you think it really depends on the audience?
Yeah, I think it probably depends on the audience because I've definitely felt that too. Where I mean, we've been in business, for 6 years, like, and I'm just like, I know a lot of the stuff. And also, if I just see the same tips getting shared again and again and again, I'm like, all right, I saw that post from another person, 6 posts ago or whatever. But I think it probably depends on the audience. But I think that there's something there where uh there's a way to be entertaining within proving a point. There's a way to be entertaining within sharing tips or inspirational within sharing tips and all that other stuff, right? It's the language that you use. It's your sense of humor as a brand that you can bring to the forefront, and so I think that it is one of those things. But you know what I love too is that you brought up your own. I think what the topic of this conversation is kind of taking a look at our own content habits, consumption habits, and thinking, what do I enjoy and how can I bring more of this into the content that I'm producing? Because that's how I approach the podcasts that I have. That's how I would love to approach Instagram, although I have not been doing that as much lately. But I really like that that you're consuming entertaining content. I've been consuming I love consuming stuff that people is kind of like perspective shifting lately. You know what I mean? Like that's what's been getting me lately is when someone is just like proving a point or shifting my perspective on something. I'm like, oh, you got me,
Yes. Well, and I think it's important to talk about the fact that we go to different platforms often for different kinds of content. So if I like in my inbox, I want more information. I don't want to just be entertained in my inbox. um, I want information. I want, that's where I want the 3 tips on yada, yada, yada. I want the blog post. I want the podcast link. On a podcast, there are a few people that I want to be entertained by, but for the most part, I want information. I want to actually consume something that feels valuable for the sake of my business. Uh, on YouTube, half the time it's looking for answers and for information, and the other half the time it's looking for very long form sort of entertainment and inspiration. On Instagram, I've been a bit annoyed the fact that you can have longer videos now, or TikTok, where I'm like, all right, I'm ready for this to be over now. Like, can we just move on with it? Like I want to know the end. I'm glad we can like scroll to the end, like swipe, like.
Finally, right? Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so it's important also to remember that there are different purposes for different platforms. We can have you can talk about the same topic and just take different approaches and make it entertaining on Instagram and informational in your inbox and a tutorial on YouTube or something like that too.
Yeah, I love that we're talking about this because I feel like it's not talked about enough. The differences like that, especially these days. I'm so tired of people being like, just take a clip from your podcast and throw it up on TikTok and throw it up on Instagram and YouTube Shorts and all the different stuff. And it's like, yeah, but like they don't like it takes a lot, like a good chunk of work and time and energy for me to get those clips out, brand them, add the captions, all the different stuff, and then they don't perform. because people don't watch them because it's not what they're looking for on those platforms. And I was like listening to someone the other day talk about even the difference between TikTok and Instagram. Like the videos do not perform the same on these two separate platforms. It's because the expectations are different for the consumers when they're consuming the content on there.
Yes, and I know there's a business coach that we've worked with before, and she's talked about how, YouTube always, like for her brand, YouTube always wanted this certain kind of perspective or topic. I don't know, storytelling versus another platform always wanted it to be about branding or whatever. And so like she would adjust like especially the titles and stuff like that, SEO for the different platforms, even if it was the same content, but trying to address the two different interests between the platforms. I think that's something that's been really interesting for me because I do post the podcast videos on YouTube. YouTube has always been my place where it's like it's my holding place for content that already exists. It's never been like a main platform strategy. Uh, but it was interesting. I have tried shorts a little bit just from clips from the podcast episode, and those performed way better than the actual podcast episodes on YouTube, which was really interesting to me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's really interesting to think about the different different things within each platform performing differently and all. So oh man, we could go down like such a rabbit hole with that. But yeah, I feel like another thing that was popping up for me, and it kind of came up with like you mentioning changing up the titles differently for different things and stuff to focus on different message or different aspect of a piece of content or something. And I have found myself lately that and this kind of comes back to the clickbaity thing too, right? But I hate any sort of title or headline or caption even that's like really confused. Again, we're bringing it back to the confusing, right? Like I want to know what I am getting out of a piece of content in order for me to click play and actually be able to consume it, right? And that actually goes for podcasts, that goes for videos of any sort, anything is and blogs too, but especially like podcasts and videos where literally I have to spend my time and attention listening to it or watching it. And I can't skim it, right? And so I was just in this summit, which was really, really fun. And honestly, all of the trainings were great that I've watched so far. But a lot of people labeled their talks, like named their talks, something that was like really confusing. I'm like, I don't even know what I'll get out of this, you know? And you better believe that those weren't the talks and trainings that I went and watched first, you know? I named my talk something that was telling you exactly what you're going to get out of this training, you know, and those are the talks that I went and watched. So I don't know, maybe that's just me, but have you been feeling that too?
Well, I think that relates directly back to content overwhelm. If
Mhm.
we don't want to spend our whole life consuming content, we already have a bajillion things we're overwhelmed with, feeling like we need to be consuming or need to be addressing courses and emails and yada, 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 yada. Um, we don't have time to be confused and to watch an hour training or YouTube video or even a 3 minute reel uh, to figure out what you're going to talk about. But that also that brought up for me definitely on YouTube. Um, I think that's maybe been a sticky point for me for SEO reasons, where I'm like, the thumbnails and titles on YouTube videos can really frustrate me. Like, and like the clickbait idea where it's like, all right,
And then they like and there's like such a formula these days. I think that that's the other thing that's been annoying me with content is like how formulaic it's all becoming more so where it's like, okay, every time I click on a freaking YouTube video that's like a how-to tutorial situation, they're gonna start the video with an attention grabbing something. Then they're gonna kind of go back, dial it back, go back to the beginning, explain who they are, and then it's gonna take forever to freaking get to the tip. And I'm like, this it just feels so formulaic. Whereas I don't know. I've just really been trying to lean into creating, not caring as much about the formulas, not caring as much about the shoulds and the plans, like the for success, you know, all the different stuff. It's like I've really been trying to think about how do I consume? What do I want? And how can I bring that into my content, my courses, my podcast, And that's just what I've been leaning into because I'm like, would I want to listen to this? Would I want to watch this or read this? And if I can say yes, then I'm like, okay, that's the best I can do. And this is what we're going with.
Yes, 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 yes. Um, we could go down. There's a whole lot of things I could respond to there. There's two more things that I want to touch on though before we wrap up. One was before we started recording, we had this little conversation about storytelling. And I've been a big storytelling fan in the past, but we both were talking about how we're in this phase where we're like, kind of about storytelling. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Like what we're seeing kind of in the industry? I think that still relates back to content overwhelm, but
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I think exactly that. That's what like the title of this episode should be like consumption habits and content overwhelm. Although that's a little bit boring, you could probably make it better, but literally it does all come back to the same thing, right? We're all consuming so much content every day. I love storytelling and I especially love micro injections of your story or brand personality into something, right? And I think that storytelling is great. And if you've built an audience that does love your stories, that's awesome. And if it's working for you, continue doing that. But for me as a consumer, and especially in like specific areas, it's exactly again thinking about which platform are we on and what are we looking for? What do we want? Because some platforms are more, you could share more stories than maybe whatever. But we were talking about how I don't want an email to land in my email box. It's just like a note. Like, okay, I'm gonna call her out because girl, I love the girl, and also she's never gonna hear this podcast interview. But Jasmine Star the other day sent one of those emails that was like this. Oh, can I say the A word on this? I'll just say long A email. It was very long, and it was the subject line was I have hard news to share, And so I'm like, what? What's happening? I click into it and she's basically just like giving this long rant about how entrepreneurship is hard and like you really have to commit to like keep going. And she's like kind of sharing personal examples, but still I'm just like, girl, I don't and it didn't have a call to action in the email. I'm just like, I don't need this landing in my inbox right now. Like I really want I think that if you tell stories, it's one of those things that we always need to remember that they need to be relatable to your ideal customer and or there needs to be a point to them and an action to take next, right? Uh and also instead of maybe there's a place for long stories, right? There's definitely places where your about page, you can share like a little bit longer stories, but our attention spans really aren't that like anything these days, right? And again, consumption, overwhelm, and just like time and energy limits and whatnot. Like we need to be really, really intentional with how we're sharing stories and injecting our personality. So you can for example, micro story example, you're writing a caption, you're sharing a hot tip with your ideal customer, and you're like, you can say something like, I learned this, or this popped up for me the other day when I was ordering my Starbucks thing and the dude spelled my name wrong, or something, like some little micro story that you can inject into something that is still relatable and speaking to your ideal customer, and or just like little personality moments, like the language that you're using. I wrote a welcome email the other day that was like, I said, I was starting it like, I'm Kinsey, the human behind Authentic AI and the instructor in the course you just bought, or whatever it is. And I was like, that is so boring sounding. So I put in quotations, that lady in the videos in the new course that you just bought, right? And that's kind of just a way to like kind of showcase my personality and like kind of warm people up to me without being overly boring or just like going on and on with like sorry, I think I got a little bit on a tangent there.
no, yeah. And I mean, obviously, all of this we always recommend take it in the context of your brand, your audience, all of the things, test the things. If you have a brand that is like, your people are there for your stories, don't just pull that away probably. Like, um, but I think this is really giving permission to a lot of us who have felt overwhelmed by needing to come up with a super relatable story for every little thing that we share. And then suddenly our emails and our captions are 3 miles long. And I'm not reading any of that stuff anymore. That's the kind of stuff I used to really love, but just with overwhelmed with technology in general, I'm like, no, thank you. Give it to me in 2 sentences in the carousel or something. I don't know. Like, um,
Oh
so
yeah, I
yeah.
agree. I actually had like I saw some advice from someone the other day. Someone was asking this person about like I have trouble like with being too long with my storytelling, right? And the advice that she got back was, I don't think that you have to worry about the length or like that. Your people love you and they love hearing your story and all that other stuff. And I get where that advice is going. And at the same time, I have been to that person's About Me page. I have read their captions. I've actually helped them with their captions. And really, their stories are amazing. And there's something to be said about good writing. I was opinions editor at our student newspaper in college, and I know how to look at a piece of copy and get rid of the repeatable stuff, change things around to make it a little bit more interesting, help like add those little pieces within the story that flow to the next one and whatnot. I mean, it's just one of those basic rules of editing. That's why authors send their stuff to editors, and it ends up being pages less than the original piece of work, right? Every novel was like 2 times its size originally, right? And it's because the editors cut back on the crap, and that's what makes a better story. So, and what's hilarious? This actually came up in this I had a big day yesterday with the summit, and also I gave a live training in person last night, which was the first time since before COVID. I was like, but okay, this came up in the training yesterday. It was about AI, right? And this dude asked, who like runs a magazine in town, asked me about interns and how they should be using AI technology like ChatGPT and stuff, and how can we make them better at it because the interns are getting crappier and crappier because they're being allowed to use AI technology and they don't know how to use it. And I was like, okay, firstly, I mean, it's a great idea to train your interns on prompting, but I also think that editing and revision is going to be a super, super important task for us to all learn as a society moving forward, because that's really essentially where it's all coming to, is being able to understand how to work with a piece of copy to make it the best it can be, instead of just like copy pasting from ChatGPT and or brain dumping a caption without even going back and looking through it and editing it all. Like I never just put my first brain dump into any piece of copy that I share with the world, because it would not make sense. It would go on forever. I'm obviously a long-winded talker. That's what my captions would be, guys, if I didn't edit, right? This is making sense, lady. Sorry. I went off on like a soapbox moment.
Yes. The other thing I wanted to say with this is also that the the form that you tell your story, I think can, as far as video versus carousel versus a caption versus an
Yeah.
email, um, can make it more or less engaging. And when you have, say, a 30, 60, 90-second reel, you're forced to tell that story a lot faster. And so, when you first kind of started talking, I was like, oh, wait, I consume a lot of stories. I love a lot of stories, but it's the video stories. Like it's the entertaining, like whatever story that I'm listening to or watching, not so much the written version. And again, the asterisk here is your audience. Like your audience
We're
may
just
feel
chatting.
all like there are some audiences who hate video. Like that's fine. Continue to lean into who your audience is. But yeah.
Oh yeah, but even like the short form video is edited and intentional. And I know I was just ragging on the formulaic stuff earlier, but like whatever, guys, we're contradicting ourselves. But still, I'm not gonna watch a reel that's like, hey guys, so I was like thinking the other day, like, but and even that's like not a great example, but just like kind of long-winded and all that different stuff. Like I'm more gonna watch a reel where it's like very much has a storytelling formula and stuff. But I was gonna say too, I have loved over the years Instagram and using Instagram captions as like my first starting point for creating written content because of the character limit. So I love that you brought that up because exactly it's like it in having to fit a story into a character limit or a time limit, you just said you don't like the long form videos as much. Maybe this is why, right? Like because people have to edit down the shorter reels or they used to, and now they could just make them as long as you want and the content's not as great, right?
Yes, yes. And I think also when we're no, I keep flipping back and forth, but when we're talking about the written, the caption itself, though, even just the way that you write it can be a lot more engaging. As far as what I'm thinking specifically is one line sentences, like 21 line paragraphs. Like for me, that is so much easier and less overwhelming to read. And it's like easier just to skim through. It's easier to be like, all right, this doesn't feel like I'm reading a novel on Instagram. I might read just as many words, but it feels more manageable to actually consume that story if it's just formatted in a way that looks easier to read.
Yeah, exactly. And again, with different platforms, it can look different. For Instagram, like for pretty much any caption on a social media platform, people are using their phones and the caption is going to be squished in together. So like adding those line breaks or emojis, like I really love using emojis for that formatting process and making it easier to read. Like I look at my captions as if it's also a design project and I think about where is the eye going? Where do I need to grab attention again? Because I might be losing people. Add a little emoji there and it's bright and colorful and cute and people will see it and they'll be like, oh, okay, I'm sucked back into this caption, right? So just thinking about these things is really great. Yeah, I think formatting, editing, considering how we create our content. I love using like GIFs or just imagery in my emails too. And I've been noticing that for myself. I think that one of the best like takeaways maybe we can get from this conversation, guys, is just to maybe try to pay attention to how you consume content. What do you like? What do you not like? Try to do more of like the stuff that you like and try not to, right? Because for me, I've been noticing with as I consume emails, there's a few people in my email list who I absolutely adore, and I stay on their email list because I adore them. And I cannot read their emails because it's this long, it's just paragraph, 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 nothing highlighted, nothing bolded, no photos. I'm like, no. And then I'll get like an email from a similar person and they have a cute little GIF that makes me laugh. And they have like a fun photo or like they color like or bold something that like draws my eye there. And I'm like, oh, yes, this is so nice to consume. We were just talking about colorful emails.
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness. Um, I thought I was gonna say something else. Oh, basically, I feel like talking about authentic content, it really is kind of just not following what everybody else says, not feeling like you're forced into a box to follow a formula, not following something just because this is what's supposed to be popular, this is what's supposed to work, or this is supposed to be the way that you market a business, or this is supposed to the way you show up on XYZ platform, but really making it engaging for you to create as well, but also for your audience, making it feel value packed and really truly knowing your brand and your audience, what value you're providing, what value your audience is looking for.
Yep, yep, yep. I know, I love that we're actually bringing this conversation full circle right now, but like for sure, I think that the best thing we can be is critical thinking and like getting curious about the content that we're consuming and what do we like, what do we not like, and then just trying to think about our audience. What do they want? What do they not want? But honestly, too, for most of us, our ideal customers are very similar to us, and that's who you want to attract because that's who you're gonna feel like the most comfortable working with, and that's who you're going to be able to provide the most value for through your own personal experiences and all that stuff. So really just thinking about like, what kind of content do I want to consume? How can I bring that into my content? And then how can I post content that feels good to me and just represents what I want and how I want to show up, right?
Absolutely. And you can always pull your audience too. If you're like, just want to make sure they're on the same page as me, like pull them in your stories. Now you can add a poll onto an Instagram post, whatever. You can go on a little rant about how you hate social media is doing XYZ and you want to know if they're feeling the same thing or if they're loving it. Whatever you want to do. But polls are super helpful for that. So, we didn't really touch on the 12 carousel to the 12 post thing. Maybe we'll
You
have
are
that for
good,
another
girl.
episode.
Yeah.
If you want to check out just in general, Kinsey actually does have a class course thing for the 12 Instagram posts. But if you kind of want to simplify your content, I think that's a really good, easy, maybe for me, it feels easier to create more authentic, real content when I'm creating less of it. And so that's why I still keep pondering the idea of the 9 and 12. Just super basic, not basic. I think
You want
that's
me to tell people what it's all about?
sure. Like, can you give us like a 2 sentence? I don't want to keep you forever, but
Oh yeah, yeah. So I created the 12 Essential Post Strategy. It's a mini course that you can literally get through learning about the strategy in like 20 minutes to understand what it's all about. I try to keep it short, quick, to the point, to not drag it out, but essentially it is about the 12 essential, most important content themes, actually, but I call them posts, because we focus on the one core post for every theme. And this is the stuff that matters for your brand, right? So this course kind of came out of me feeling like people are just like posting clickbaity stuff on Instagram, and I'm like tired of just getting all that clickbaity stuff instead of hearing about people's brands and the stuff that like matters to me and the stuff that I care about, the stuff that I need to know if I want to continue following them, if I want to learn from them or eventually work from them, right? And you know what really hit home for me too was in the holiday season, more people were posting more of this meaningful content that I was craving. And I was like, yes. And I was paying attention. I was loving it. I was like, this is what it's all about, right? So the 12 essential posts, yeah, it's basically 12 core essential themes with 12 core essential posts that you can create for your brand. It works for any industry because it's really the foundation of your brand's messaging and also your brand's sales journey, which is pretty cool too, right? Because these 12 essential posts aren't just 12 random posts in any order. They're actually laid out so that you can take your ideal customers on a journey of getting to know, like, and trust your brand, telling them about what you offer and what you do and how you help people, and then eventually leads into more of a direct kind of, this is what we got, guys. Who wants to buy it, right? And so that's what really is cool about the 12 Essential Posts, and the fact that there are 12 of them. You can actually recycle through them again and again and again, whether that's you just wanting to be quote unquote lazy, which I feel you, and just fully repost your same essential post over and over, or we do offer different ways to write the same post and or different post ideas within each essential theme. So ultimately, it's really kind of a cool, ongoing, sustainable, simplified strategy that you can use for social media, that you can just repeat again and again throughout the year, depending on your goals and all that different stuff. I've had a few students using it for like, they're like, I'm going to repeat the 12 essential posts with like a different offer theme throughout the year, right? Depending on what I want to sell, I'll create a set of essential posts for this offer. And then I'll move on to my other offer in my other season of my business, right? So that's been pretty cool. And you can also bolster the 12 essential posts with like some of that more entertaining or relatable content, which is really cool too. So that's what I love about it, is because I cannot stay consistent on Instagram, right? And so I'm working on my 12 essential posts right now for Authentic AI. I cannot wait to finish them. But once I do, I'll know I at least have the one essential post every week that I can share. And then hopefully I'll be able to maybe create some reels or like entertaining stuff, whatever that looks like. But like I'll be able to mix it into the cycle, but at least I'll know that I have my essential post going out so I can feel proud of my consistency again because I've been missing it, guys.
Yes, well, and I love this idea. My brain, I'm thinking of like how each of those 12 posts you could make a carousel, a reel, a meme, like there's so many different ways you could approach the content so that you don't feel like you're just like if you're not, I don't want to just repost the same thing, but you could share it just in a different way of
Oh
interacting.
my gosh, can I share something with you real quick too?
Yes.
Because this came up during our live challenge. So it's an on-demand mini course, guys, but so you can just like complete it whenever. And I have, three different caption templates for every post. I have like 16 different visual ideas for every post. I have ChatGPT prompts for every post too that you can use if you want to. But I hosted a live challenge for it recently. I'm gonna host another one, probably early summer or late spring. But it someone was asking like how do I keep repeating these posts again if I don't really want to keep sharing the same stuff over and over, right? And this totally fits into what we've been talking about this whole time, right? Of like content and how people consume it and who is seeing your posts and are they actually reading them anyway. And so I told her, firstly, if you are feeling lazy, you can just post one a week for 12 weeks and repeat them, and like most people didn't see the first post the first time, they probably won't remember it 12 weeks later. It's fine. Or you can change up the visual. Just only changing up the visual makes it feel like a completely different post. You can do a different visual with a different caption. Great. Or you can change up the visual and the first sentence, right? The first sentence is like most people don't make it past that, right? So at that point, you're looking at 5% of your audience who actually saw your post, read the whole thing, right? And if you wanted to, you could just change up the caption and essentially say the same thing, which is really cool because we do have the 3 caption templates for every post. So people have been writing their captions in the 3 different ways, essentially telling the same story or sharing the same tip, but it like will feel different for your audience, right? And then after that, if you do want to get super crazy with it, there are different posts within each theme, right? So, for example, the very first post, and it's hilarious, we've been talking about stories, but the very first essential post is your brand's like story, right? Your brand's origin story. And that is kind of the first essential theme. The core post of that theme is your brand's origin story, how you started your business. But, there are 3 other examples that kind of fit into this theme of your brand's story and like representing the foundation of your brand and like what you care about and what matters to you. And, so you could also within that theme share like about your brand's values or your brand's vision or your brand's mission, whatever that looks like. So there are different ways to share that essential theme for your brand too. Sorry, I could like geek out about this because I just been so
I'm just
loving it.
like reeling with all the ideas, like
Oh
for
yeah,
the different, like to change up the story, ChatGPT, rewrite it 4 different ways for me. I'll pick 2. Like, like
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah. And
also, oh, go
okay.
ahead. I'm loving also how this connects back to, I basically wrapped up authentic content as really depending on being solid on your brand identity. I love that this could be maybe what feels like a more actionable way to go back to those basics and work through them again. Sometimes I know for myself, like going back to my branding and working through it again, it's like, all right, I can do this, but blah, 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 whatever. This is kind of boring. I have to redo a bunch of stuff. But if you have a very specific thing, like, all right, I'm creating a post for this, I already have kind of this structure around it, I feel like it would be a lot easier and to like actually go back to those and rework them when there's a
Totally. Yeah. Oh, I love that you brought it there too, right? Because that's exactly it. It's like getting to the core foundational of your brand's messaging, right? And also too, I always like to tell people, I haven't figured, guys, this course is quite new, but I'm loving it. And I'm really trying to figure out how to like talk about it in a way that really hits home for people, right? But it's not just the 12 essential posts, it's the journey that you take your customers on to, right? Which is really cool because you're going from kind of introducing your brand the wave hello, and or just like reminding people who your brand is if they've already been following you, to taking them down this journey of entertaining them, inspiring them, of telling them what it is that you do, not just like what you offer, but how you help them, like all of these different things come together to then prepare them to be ready to take that action with you at the end. So yeah, it's really, really fun. There's so many different ways to use it. I've had my students, and also the fun thing about the live challenge was that this is actually what has brought up this like editing person in me again. I've always been an editor, reviser. I've worked with one of my coaching clients where I'll look at their captions and fix it, quote unquote, right? But I was able to do that with my 12 essential post students one too in the live challenge. And it was super fun. They took these posts, they put them on their like about me page, their home page, they're turning them into emails. I was like, oh, you can turn this into blogs, make sure that you're linking this blog with this blog in your website too. And you can also make it into a post as well. Like there's lots of different ways to use these posts. It's really great and actionable and helpful for you in understanding your brand and revisiting it again, like you said. Yeah.
Yes, yes. We're so dangerous when we talk because we just keep feeding off of each other. But like
We should stop. We should
it's like
stop.
so perfect for an email funnel introduction where you're like introducing yourself and your brand and like all that stuff.
Great. It
And then
is.
I'm
Yeah.
like, also like you could even create like a series on YouTube that's like, all right, this is what my business is all about. So when people first find you, it's all put packaged together with
Hmm?
12 videos or whatever. Anyway, so many ideas.
Okay. One more thing, because we're such nerds. Okay. Because also too, like essentially there's 12 months in the year. And like we could, and 12 posts really does fit into a month if you share like 3 per week, right? Kind of thing. So I'm like wanting to take this for my brand and be like, pick a theme for each month in the year, create 12 posts around this theme for January, create 12 posts around this theme for February, and like create a whole year of content, girl. And it's like 12 by 12.
Yes. Well, and the thing, okay, so we've kind of bashed storytelling a little bit, but um, the thing is, when you do retell these stories over and over again from different angles and different themes, like that
Yeah.
sticks so much, and people resonate. Like that helps build not only your brand identity and the like, no trust, and like the whole brand affinity, but people remember your story and then they're going to tell somebody else about your story and they're going to be like, oh yeah, if I need this is the person I'm going to go to because they've talked about this whole journey that they've been on and they understand it. They're the person for me for this coach or this, course or whatever. There
Hmm.
there is a lot of value to storytelling. I think we're just in a place where maybe it's thinking about storytelling a little bit differently than we have in the past.
Oh, you know what popped up for me earlier that I don't think I said was, I think that there's an issue within our social media realm and stuff of advice for content creators and advice for business owners, right? There's
Mm,
a lot of advice for content creators swirling around the internet, and I feel like a lot of business owners are taking that advice and trying it. And I think that that's also where storytelling kind of comes into the mix, where content creators need to show up and just tell their daily banal lives because that's kind of how they are content creators. But like business owners, it's not exactly the same, right? And so really that's what this course is doing, is bringing it back to the foundational stories of your business that matter, that people do want to pay attention to, that you should be sharing, and then like taking them on that journey, right? Like versus just showing up as a content creator every day when you're really more of a business owner. Does that make sense?
yes, yes. I love this so much. I'm just looking at the time and laughing and feeling like we should
I
maybe tell
know.
folks, all right, where do you get the course?
Okay.
It's really funny because Kinsey and I were like just chatting about life and business for an hour before this, and now
Oh
we
yeah.
make the podcast less than an hour. It's definitely hitting an hour now. So, Kinsey,
Yeah.
where can folks find you? Where can they find the course? All of the things.
Oh yeah. Okay. I would love to connect with you. I am at Feel Good Social on Instagram, or if you're interested in AI stuff, at Authentic AI for Entrepreneurs as well. And then my course is on my website, feelgoodsocial.com. If you go to feelgoodsocial.com/mini mini course. That's where you'll find it. And yeah, you can get it on demand right now already. And I am planning on doing another live challenge this spring, which really is super fun for actually just getting the stuff done, right? 12 posts in 12 days. It sounds like a lot, but I had, multiple people finish this challenge, create 12 posts in 12 days. They got my feedback on their posts, and it was just so fun. And it was really fun for me to like learn more about my students. I loved it. And I was like, and that ultimately was when I knew that this was working, right? I was like, a lot of my students, one of the students that I had never met. I just connected. The first time we ever connected was like when she signed up for the mini course, right? And I didn't know anything about her brand or anything like that. And now I'm like, I freaking love you. You're amazing. If I was a pattern designer, I would buy your shit immediately. Like. So I don't know. That's where I was like, oh yeah, this works because their posts are working on me right now.
Yes, yes, I love that. And we were talking before we started recording. Challenges are so amazing because if you're thinking about approaching the mini course and you're like, it can be easy to drag out, and maybe you just really dread thinking about your brand, the journey that got you here. But if you have, all right, I'm just going to create a post. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be final. I'm just going to create it so I can create it and get some feedback on it. That can be so powerful.
Yeah, totally. No, it really is. And like it's good for accountability. That's what I heard from a lot of my challenge takers. They're like, man, it was a good amount. They're like, it got easier through the week as I kind of got into the flow. I actually had one student say too that she was like worried. She's like 12 posts in 12 days. How am I going to do this? And she got behind a day. And then the day when she was like catching up, she created 4 posts in a day. And she was like, actually, I found that that was the easiest day to do it, right? When you get to that content creation workflow, right? So yeah, the challenge is going to be awesome. Again, I can't wait to run it. And if you enroll in the mini course, you'll get an invite to that challenge. So if you want to check it out, like whenever it comes out and you're like, but I want to do the challenge, don't worry. You'll get the invite. All my students will get the invite to the next challenge. So
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining and chatting about all things marketing all the time. It's always fun to
thank,
have you.
thank you so much for having me, lady. I love chatting with you every time.
Wow. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you found it valuable, please share the podcast with a designer friend. And if you have a minute, leave a review. It's so helpful for me and means the world to me. Chat soon.